Hey guys, welcome back to NFL Trading Room. My name is Drew. Today we're going to be diving into part 2 of the first round 2025 NFL Draft grading video. We did part 1 earlier. Be sure to go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive right back into it. Starting back at 17 with the Cincinnati Bengals. They take one of the most controversial players in this draft in Shemar Stewart, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. And this is probably the most polarizing pick at first round. Like everybody either gives us a D or an A, because everybody falls on one of two camps with Shemar Stewart. And he's number 7th overall on my big board. I'm a massive Shemar Stewart guy. Again, if you've listened to any of my videos, you know I'm not a production guy at all. I purely watch the tape, and I think Shemar Stewart's tape is awesome. So I'm going to give this pick an A. Cincinnati, obviously, as everybody knew they desperately needed help in the front seven, and they get that and more in Shemar Stewart. I understand the production concerns, only having 1.5 sacks in his best season at Texas A&M. But when you watch that defense at Texas A&M, Mike Elko, the scheme he had cooking up there at College Station is pretty rough. You have a 270, 280-pound cyborg in Shemar Stewart, who is a generational athlete at the position. I mean, the bend and the twitch and the burst that he has at that size is really just, you don't ever see it. And he had him playing mostly like 4-eye, 5-tech contain most of the time. He never really had a chance to just like pin his ears back and rush the passer. The tape was really good when he did it. He drew so much attention all the time, having double teams constantly. Like, teams were scared of this guy. And again, very raw as a pass rusher. I understand. Like, this is a guy you have to refine. A lot of what we were talking about with Michael Williams, right, to San Francisco in the first part of this video, where a guy is going to come in. Shemar Stewart is an incredible run defender, first of all. That's going to be his floor, is a great run defender. He's going to be a guy that can come in as a 5-tech on first and second down and consistently set the edge and run defense. That's his best trait. And you're going to have him be able to contribute as purely a run defender early on in his career while you really develop and kind of refine some of those raw athletic tools with him as a pass rusher. The hands need to get better. The timing with the hands really needs to improve. Everything as a pass rusher needs to get better, right? But you're drafting this guy purely based off of traits. I mean, he's just an unreal athlete and an incredible run defender. So with all that, with how my view of the tape, and I'm obviously incredibly high on him being a top 7 player on my board, that's going to be an A for me. Moving on to 18, the Seattle Seahawks. They are going to get a C+ from me, taking Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman out of North Dakota State. And I'm a little bit lower on Zabel. I'll give him a C+ because you're addressing easily the biggest position of need on the team. Like that interior offensive line was a mess last year. Easily the weakest unit in the entire NFL. They need a center. They need both guards. So getting Zabel, who's a guy who can probably play center. People have floated that out there. I don't really see him as a center. I see him more as a guard. But either way, either position he plays, they need that. So he fills a massive position of need. That's a bonus. But I'm a little bit lower on Zabel as a player just because for a guy with obviously very, very short arms, I think that's going to hurt him even on the interior a little bit just because the wingspan is so short. But while he does have like overwhelming play strength, he's a bulldozer in the run game. He's so strong. But the hand usage is not where I want it to be. The punch is not how I'd like it to be. He's kind of a hugger. He's late with his hands all the time. He's constantly letting guys into his frame way earlier than he's getting his punch out first. And that really concerns me personally with him. That's why I'm a little bit lower. I think the balance issues are there too. The same things we were talking about with Kelvin Banks. He tends to kind of lunge into his punches sometimes, which is weird because he doesn't really need to generate extra power, right? But that's still an issue he struggles with. So I'm a little bit lower on Zabel as a player. He's like 57 for me on my board. So a little bit of a reach in my eyes, but again, fills a position of need. You saw a run go on interior offensive linemen. Those guys were flying off the board. So for them to go ahead and get their guy, I can respect that. And they'll get a C+ from me. Jumping at 19 here is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Emeka Egbuka, the receiver out of Ohio State. And this is a scenario where I love the player, I hate the pick. Because I really like Emeka Egbuka. He was 21 on my board, so pretty much dead in the exact same range they took him. I think he works best in the slot, but I think he can play outside. I don't think people give his versatility enough credit. Not a guy that's ever going to be like a wide receiver 1, but probably a top-end wide receiver 2. He's so good at everything, such a high-floor player, very, very cerebral, smart player, killed the interview process. The NFL loved him. But I just don't understand the fit in Tampa, right? Because you have Jalen McMillan, who had a great rookie season. You've got Chris Godwin back. I know he's coming off an injury, but you've got him re-signed for the next 2 or 3 years off that fresh contract. Mike Evans is still there, locked in for another year or two. So you're drafting this guy at 19 when you have a desperate need in the front seven. You need edge rusher. You desperately need inside linebacker. And there were good players on the board at this point. Like Donovan Ezraku was still there, and Jihad Campbell was still on the board. So the fact that they passed all that to get a wide receiver who's going to be fighting for the 3rd spot is really strange to me. So again, I love Emeka Egbuka the player. I just really don't understand and kind of question the fit and the reasoning behind this pick for Tampa. So they're going to get a C for me just purely because of the fit, even though I love the player. Moving on to 20, we're going to have the Denver Broncos taking Jahdae Barron, the corner out of Texas. And I really like this pick. I think this was not Denver's plan coming into that. I think they wanted to add a weapon for Sean Payton in his offense and support Bo Nix. But you have a guy like Jahdae Barron, who's widely considered like a borderline top 10 player in this class, fall all the way to you at 20. They just took BPA. And Slott's not, I see him more as purely a nickel corner. I would not keep him on the outside. I wouldn't try to move him to safety. I just let him play that apex defender that he mostly played in Texas. And that's not really a need for Denver, but I think he's going to come in and be the day one starter there. Obviously, I've been adamant about how I think he has borderline all-pro nickel potential, even as a rookie. Another very, very smart, cerebral player that the NFL loves because he killed it on the whiteboard. You can see the wheels turning on the film. He's just very, very quick and efficient at diagnosing what's going on in front of him. The eyes are really good, really disciplined. And I think he's a very physical corner, too. He'll come up and knock somebody's lights out in the run game. That's another thing that adds a new layer to that secondary in Denver. Again, I'll give this a B+, just because there's needs it didn't fill, but a player that caliber falling to you at 20, I can just respect, take a BPA, best player on your board. So I'll give that a solid B+. Here at 21 is one of the biggest surprises to me of this draft, at least. That's Pittsburgh taking Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. I thought for sure Pittsburgh was going to take a quarterback, whether that was Shadur Sanders when he slipped, whether that was Jalen Milroe, whether that was Jaxson Dart. I thought they were going to take somebody, right? Because it's Mason Rudolph and nobody else in that quarterback room. So I thought they were one of these teams that was just backed into a corner and was going to have to reach. But I have a ton of respect for that front office putting their foot down and refusing to buy in on this quarterback class and taking Derek Harmon, who I had as he was 18 on my board, top 20 player. I love Derek Harmon. I think he's a fantastic three technique. Very reminiscent of Cam Hayward, right? Who was a longtime Steelers legend. I think Derek Harmon, he's kind of a weird build, right? He's kind of a more slender lower body and a really big, thick upper body. But it kind of helps him, I think. He's got a lot of leg drives, really, really a lot of stopping power, even as more of a pass rushing finesse three tech. A lot of speed in his game, as well as a great, very, very powerful, strong hands on the interior, great hand usage. I think the best pass rusher in this class on the interior behind Mason Graham, in my opinion, he's my defensive tackle too, while also being a good enough run defender to be able to stay on the field all three downs. And that was the biggest need on the team besides quarterback, in my opinion, for Pittsburgh. So they get one of the best players left on my board, as well as filling a need. That's going to get an A from me. I love that pick. And here, moving on to 22, we're going to have the Chargers taking Amarion Hampton, the running back out of UNC. And this one's going to get a B+ for me. Again, I really like Amarion Hampton as a player. I think it makes sense for a Jim Harbaugh offense. It's very centered around running the ball. You need a guy that can kind of take the pressure off of Herbert. But I do worry about the weapons still. That's been the theme with the Chargers for forever, right? Even after adding Ladd McConkey last year, who I think is outstanding, one of the best receivers in the league already. You really don't have anybody beyond that. You lost Josh Palmer. Quentin Johnston is not a piece you can rely on at all. You don't have a solid tight end you can look to. There's just question marks all over that supporting cast on offense, and I think you need a receiver to put opposite Ladd McConkey to really make that offense function. But like I said, Jim Harbaugh offense, he loves to run it on the ground and really center his offense around the ground game. And I think Amarion Hampton is a first-round caliber running back. I think he's RB1 in pretty much any class that doesn't include Ashton Genty. My player comp with him was not really a player comp, it's just a battering ram with a rocket strapped to the back. I mean, this guy is just not creative at all. He's not looking to run around you in the slightest. There's no finesse to his game, but he's going to run a hole through your chest. I mean, this guy is as explosive as it gets, as powerful as it gets. Good vision. His vision improved a lot from 2023 to 2024. I was really impressed with that. I think he's got NFL-level vision now. Probably more works as a zone runner compared to a gap scheme runner, but I think he has some versatility there in the scheme as well. And I think, like I said, probably I would have looked at a receiver, but you add one of the better players left on the board at still a position of need after losing J.K. Dobbins. Even after adding Najee Harris, I think that Hampton's still going to be the number one in that tandem. And I do really like that pick, so I'll give that a B+ for the Chargers. And here at 23, we have Green Bay adding their first-round receiver since 2002 in Matthew Golden out of Texas. And Matthew Golden is my wide receiver 2 behind Luther Burden, who obviously Luther Burden slipped a lot because of the character stuff, and we all know all the off-the-field stuff there. But Matthew Golden, I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's the most versatile receiver in this class. I think he can play X. I think he can play Z. I think he can play in the slot. He's going to find a lot of success wherever you put him. And I think for a team that's got all of those really like second fiddle receivers like we've talked about in Green Bay, like you have a Jaden Reed, you have a Dontavion Wicks, you have a Christian Watson, who if he can stay healthy can be an X, but and Romeo Dobbs, like you have a lot of great pieces, but none to really be the true number one alpha guy. And I think Matthew Golden has the potential to do that. Very, very nuanced, advanced, natural separator. Above average athlete, not the top end of the athletes, but he's good. He's got some twitch to him. But I think he gets undersold a lot at the catch point as well. This is a guy that can track the ball. He's like a sixth sense where the ball is at all times. He flashes his hands late. He just looks like a veteran. This is a guy that's been playing the receiver position for his whole life. That's what he looks like. Just very, very well-rounded and polished. He's going to come in and be the immediate wide receiver one in Green Bay. In my opinion, so I'll give that a solid B. I think they would have added some to the secondary. I think they have a need at corner. They have a need in the front seven as well. There's some good players on the board. But I don't dislike the Matthew Golden pick at all. I'll give that a solid B. Here at 24 is the Minnesota Vikings, sticking and picking offensive lineman out of Ohio State, Donovan Jackson, who played guard most of the season and got to the playoffs, and you saw they have a need at tackle. He had to kick out the tackle and play off the tackle for the whole playoffs, and he put some of the best tackle tape that we've seen on the board. I still think he works best at guard, but I think he has versatility. He's a guy you can play at tackle first if you need to. I think he's probably going to start out at guard in Minnesota next to Christian Darrisaw, but I love Donovan Jackson as a player. He was 26th on my board. I have very, very early second-round grade on him. I think he's a very, very strong player. I think there's some balance issues. I wish he wouldn't lunge as much again. That's kind of a theme in this offensive line class. Guys that are really naturally strong, they don't need the extra punch from leading into things, but they do it anyway, and they get balance issues with that. It's frustrating to see, but for a guy that's as big and powerful as he is, I don't think the foot speed is bad at all. That's why I think he has potential to have that swing tackle versatility. I think he can hold up against NFL speed. The hands are very strong. The punch, the stopping power on that outside hand punch that he has is crazy. He's got vice grips for hands, dominant run blocker. I was kind of surprised to see Minnesota stick here. I thought they were 100% going to trade out, only having 4 picks in this draft. But they stick, and they saw the run on interior offensive line. They knew that was a need, and they stick and take the interior offensive line too on my board. So I'm going to give that a B+. I like that pick a lot. I do just worry about their lack of capital, but I do really like that pick. Here at 25, which was originally Houston, who traded this for a second, a third, and a 2023 third to New York Giants, that came up to get Jaxson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss. And that was what we heard the whole time, right? That was that the Saints and the Giants were the two teams really like working the phone lines, trying to get back up into the end of the first round to come and get a quarterback. And we heard that Jaxson Dart was Dayball's guy. And that was true. And first of all, I'm going to give Houston, even though they didn't pick in the first round, they get an A for picking up 3 day 2 picks to only move back, 8 spots or whatever it was at the end of the day, or 10 spots, I guess it would have been. So they get an A from me. Any class like this where you always hear everybody always wants to trade back, right? But you need 2 to dance. It's very rare to see those teams actually be able to trade back. But you see that the 2 that got to in here are both going to get A+ from me for picking up that draft capital and not moving very far back. So good on Houston. I'm going to give this pick a C- for the Giants, and it's not because of the strategy. I fully understand, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are on the hottest of hot seats, right? They're gone after the season if they don't improve things, and you have to make a splash move at quarterback to try and save your job, right? I understand that. I understand the NFL is a business, and this is the business side of it. It's how it works. But as a player, I just cannot get with Jaxson Dart. I don't see the appeal of a first-round guy in Jaxson Dart. I think he's very accurate. I think he's a pretty good athlete. He's got a good head on his shoulders for when to run and when to try to make out of structure. I think he's one of the better runners in this class. But as a pure passer, past the accuracy, which again is nice, but that arm strength is average at best by NFL standards. People talk about him like this he's drawn a lot of Josh Allen comparisons. People talk about him like he has a cannon for an arm, and I just don't understand that at all. He's got a very average at best arm, in my opinion. The biggest worry to me is just the typical Ole Miss stuff, right? You never got to see him process. The Ole Miss offense doesn't ask quarterbacks to think. All of it is, short game, RPO, one read stuff. And you saw in Mobile in the Senior Bowl when Jaxson Dart had to run a shell of an NFL playbook. He really struggled. You saw him get stuck a lot. I don't think his eyes and the ability to work through progressions are there. And this is a guy that really needs to sit for a long time, at least a year or two, and learn the NFL nuances and learn the playbook and really just be able to improve that processing side of his game. And I worry in a situation like New York that he's going to be forced to play earlier than he should, and I don't think it's going to be very pretty when he has to get on the field before he's ready. So that's the thing that holds me up with Jaxson Dart. But again, I understand this is a move that they had to make. I understand the front office backed into a corner. So I'll still give it a C-, even though I didn't have Jaxson Dart in my top 100. So reach-wise, it'd be really bad. It'd probably be an F. But because I understand the thought process behind the pick, I'll give it a C-. Here at 26, the pick right after, we had another trade, our second trade of the first round. Originally the Rams. Atlanta Falcons traded back up, and the Rams traded out, and the Rams get an A++ for this. They picked up a 2026 first to move into the early second from where the Rams are. That's outstanding. To be able to move back only like 10 or 15 spots, whatever they did, in a draft class like this and pick up a 2026 first is outstanding. It's in the back end of the first round. That's incredible process by the Rams. They get an A++ for me. Unfortunately, the Falcons, after having one of my few A grades, taking Jalen Walker at 15, they're going to get a C- for me here. They trade up to 27 to take James Pearce Jr., the edge rusher out of Tennessee. He was 30th on my board, so it's not really a reach to me. But you heard all throughout the process, he had the most concerning character concerns of anybody in this draft class. Which I guess, looking back, maybe it's not true because you saw guys fall further because of that than he did. But you heard some really scary stuff about him as a person. As a player, I think he's a very, very strange edge rusher to grade because he's 240 pounds, very lean, slender frame, but he's a pure pass rusher skill set, pure power rusher skill set wise. This is a guy that doesn't have much bend to him. He's not very flexible. Not going to win with speed a whole lot, but he's just such an explosive, powerful player that he just runs through guys' chests, even at 240 pounds. And I think he's explosive enough to make that work at the NFL level, but it's not going to work nearly to the degree that it did in college. The hand usage is just completely raw. It's just not there. He needs to fully develop a pass rush plan and more pass rush moves and just general hand usage. He's not a bad run defender, but not a guy you really want as a 3-down edge at the NFL level. And after adding an already undersized edge rusher in Jalen Walker, trading a future first to get another undersized edge rusher in the first round is a little bit tough for me. So I'm going to give this a C- because of the trade value and because of James Pearce as a player and all the baggage that comes with him off the field. I'm going to be a little bit lower on that pick. So they get a C- from me. And here, back to no trades, thankfully. At 27, we have the Baltimore Ravens taking Malachi Starks, and this is an easy A. This is what the Ravens always do. They sit at the back of the first round, and they have some, awesome player that should have gone way earlier or fall right into their laps, and this year it's Malachi Starks. Pairing him in that defense next to Kyle Hamilton back deep is going to be really scary. I think Malachi Starks, he was my safety 2 behind him in Worry, but he was a top 20 player for me. I really liked Malachi Starks. Such a versatile DB, the most versatile DB in this class. He can play slot, he can play safety, he can play outside corner. There's nothing he can't do in the back end of that defense. He's going to be really scary because of how flexible he is. He can play wherever they want him to. Very sticky in man coverage, disciplined in zone coverage. He's an above-average athlete, can come down to support on the run game. Just an incredibly well-rounded safety. He gives you everything you could possibly want in a safety. So for the Ravens to land him in that already awesome defense and already developed secondary this late in the draft, that's going to get an A from me. And that's outstanding. And here at 28, the Detroit Lions take Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. And this is going to get a C+ for me because I just think it's a reach. There were defensive linemen I would have gone ahead of Tyleik Williams, and on top of the fact that edge was by far the biggest need for Detroit, Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming off a disastrous leg injury, being the only edge rusher under contract to really has a pulse to really play on that team. I feel like you had to add an edge, and with the edge talent that was on the board at this point, you really couldn't have gone wrong. But they opt to choose for a guy to go opposite of Ali McNeil, and I think you've seen Ali McNeil really shed some weight and work more in that kind of 3-tech to 5-tech spot, and they want Tyleik to come in and play that nose tackle role, which I get. So stylistically and role-wise, I get it. But I still think it's a reach talent level-wise. Tyleik was around the 50s on my board. I think he gets undersold as a pass rusher, but he's still primarily a run-defending nose tackle. Not the best athlete in the world. Just going to come in and be a day one gap plugger and just kind of be on the field sometimes on passing downs rotationally. But yeah, with the talent that was there at edge, that was a bigger position of need in my opinion and had better players. A little bit of a reach on Tyleik Williams. I'm going to give it a C+. And here at 29, the Washington Commanders taking Josh Connerly, the offensive tackle out of Oregon. I'm going to give this a flat B. I liked it. I think they were, again, another team that needs edge, and there's a lot of edge talent on the board. I probably would have gone that way for them. But this is clearly a team that understands what they have in Jaden Daniels, coming off an incredible historic rookie season, and they know what they're doing with this rookie QB window. They know they have to protect him, and so they take after trading for Laramie Tunsil, who's outstanding, and then you go and get another guy opposite of him and Josh Connerly, and you've got two after having all the offensive line problems they did last year. They've got the tackle problem solved just like that. So that gets a B for me. It's a little bit of a reach to me for Connerly. I had him more in that early second round range, but not that badly. Very, very rangy, athletic tackle, one of the most athletic tackles I've ever graded. But the play strength does worry me. The anchor concerns, I think, are going to show up at the NFL level. NFL power is going to give him some real struggles. But like I said, addressing both sides of tackle with Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connerly, and really just locking in Jaden Daniels with two bookend tackles for his rookie contract. I love the strategy, and I think Washington's doing it the right way, so they get a B from me. Here at 30 is going to be Buffalo, taking Maxwell Hairston, the corner out of Kentucky. And this one is a struggle for me, too. I like Hairston. I couldn't get on the first round hype with everybody else. He was like in the late 50s on my board. And I think he's a really sticky, obviously a top-end athlete, tested extremely well. I think he works really well in man coverage, and they played a lot more zone at Kentucky. So he didn't really get to show his full skill set. I think he's more of a press, physical man corner, which maybe Buffalo will let him play. Who knows? I think he's an outside guy at least, which solves a problem for them. That's a hole for them. But he's got some really concerning off-the-field issues as well, which kind of is the thing that makes me most hesitant about this pick, taking him in the first round. But also just as a player, I worry about him. His physicality at the catch point doesn't really match his physicality at the line of scrimmage. So again, but you're betting on the athleticism. It's a position of need for Buffalo, so I'll give them a C+. I understand the thought process. I'm just a little bit lower on the player. And here, rounding it out with the two Super Bowl teams, the Eagles traded up one spot with the Chiefs, actually, to go up to 31. They just flipped to 31-32. And just spoiler alert, these both can be A+, and it's incredibly frustrating. The Eagles and the Chiefs both secured top 10 players on my board at 31 and 32. The Eagles trade up to get Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama, who was 6th on my big board. They got him at 31. And I know there's some major, like he's got the labrum injury, and there's a lingering knee injury, so that's why he fell. But even with that, like a guy that NFL teams fell in love with during the process because he's so smart on the whiteboard, he gives you everything you could possibly want in an inside linebacker. He's an incredible top-end athlete, super rangy, great in coverage, while also having incredible stopping power and being able to run fit as an elite run defender. He's just the entire package, an inside linebacker. He's going to be a day one top-end linebacker in the league, in my opinion. Again, barring some possible injury concerns, but it doesn't sound like it's going to hold him back that much from what I know. So this is an easy A+ for me. How he does it again, it's incredibly frustrating for the Eagles to continuously land just some of the best players in the draft at the back end of the first every year, but they do it again this year. And then the team they traded with, Chiefs going back one spot to 32, get Josh Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State, who again, like I mentioned in the first video, fell because of the knee injury, the patella tear, and the character concerns with him. But he has the best tackle tape, in my opinion, in this class. I think for a guy that played at 297 pounds, the first number I got thrown around, but hearing a tackle at sub 300, you get really concerned for a minute, right? But you don't really see a lack of power on this guy's tape. Like I didn't really see him lose through his chest a lot. Like he has a really good anchor for a guy who's on the lighter side. He's still a dominant run blocker. Obviously, incredibly explosive athlete. Works extremely well in space, being that light. He hunts DBs down for sport in space. The way he tracks second and third level defenders is really just so much fun to watch. The hands are incredible. The hand usage is great. He's immune to chops and swipes. The hands. He gets them back up so fast when he loses, and he's patient with his hands, but he's also got a nice punch. Really, the only gripe I have with Josh Simmons is that he's a little bit too wide with his hand placement and kind of let guys into his frame a little bit too early because of that. But overall, if he can come back full health from this knee, which again, it sounds like he is currently, I think he's the OT1 in this class. I think he's extremely frustrating for the Chiefs to get him at 32 and fill that massive hole for them after Joe Thuney left. And Kingsley Suamataia is going to slide inside, so I imagine he'll take that tackle spot. But that's another easy A+ for me with the Chiefs. I think they hit that pick out of the park. And yeah, that's going to about wrap it up for this draft grade video. If I just completely got your team's grade wrong and you want to argue with me, feel free to do it in the comments. I'm always down there debating with people. I always love to hear that. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. And I will catch you guys in the next one.